Welcome back to Comic Cappers. Today we are diving into the absolute universe, where the Green Lantern legacy is being completely rewritten. On this cover, we get our first look at the raw, volatile nature of this power. It's not just a ring anymore, it's a swirling, cosmic force that seems to consume everything it touches. With Ewing and Lindsay at the helm, we're about to see just how dangerous and unpredictable the Green Lantern energy truly is in this new reality. Before we dive back into the cosmic mystery of the absolute Green Lantern, we have to acknowledge this striking teaser page. It sets a haunting, icy tone, shifting our focus momentarily to Gotham City, where Batman crouches amidst a swirling, frozen landscape. The caption is ominous, warning us that Gotham's past is frozen in fear. It's a sharp, atmospheric pivot that reminds us just how cold and dangerous this absolute universe can get. We open on an extreme close-up of Hal Jordan, eyes shut tight against a desert backdrop. A cryptic, almost hypnotic command echoes in his mind. The scene shifts to a void of pure black, conveying a cosmic, terrifying presence. A voice, or perhaps the power itself, speaks from the darkness. The void centers on a singular, glowing ring of light, focusing directly on Hal as the voice continues its chilling, rhythmic mantra. The sense of dread is palpable as we find our mysterious, disheveled stranger stumbling down a desolate Nevada highway. He's clearly at the end of his rope, completely overwhelmed by the terrifying power he's carrying, and he can barely bring himself to vocalize the sheer panic consuming him. A lone highway patrol officer pulls over a disheveled man walking through the Nevada heat, unaware he's dealing with a literal ticking time bomb. The stranger looks absolutely haunted, his eyes wide and unfocused as he struggles to even form a coherent sentence. Silence hangs heavy between them, the tension spiking as the officer notices something deeply wrong with the man's demeanor. Things are escalating fast. A highway patrol officer is losing his patience with the disheveled stranger, pressing him hard about what he's hiding in his bag. The officer is clearly suspicious, jumping to the worst conclusions as he demands answers. The tension hits a breaking point. The officer is practically shouting now, fixated on the idea that the stranger is carrying a weapon. Right between them, a mysterious, void-like black circle manifests in the air, a terrifying, reality-warping visual that suggests the weapon isn't anything conventional. Everything goes south in an instant. The officer pulls his service weapon, forcing the terrified man to get on the ground. But as the officer moves to secure the scene, the stranger tries to warn him, clearly knowing that whatever power he's holding is about to trigger a catastrophe. Things are escalating rapidly as the officer keeps his weapon trained on the frantic man, demanding compliance. The tension is palpable as the man desperately tries to explain himself, screaming out his identity as Hal Jordan from Evergreen. But the officer isn't listening, his focus entirely on the perceived threat. As the man continues to spiral, he drops the name that changes everything, Abin Sur. The standoff reaches a breaking point, the officer's final warning hanging in the air as he demands to see what the man is hiding in his jacket, oblivious to the cosmic danger he's about to trigger. The stranger's face is a portrait of pure, unadulterated terror, eyes wide and streaming with tears as he realizes the catastrophic nature of what he's carrying. He stumbles away from the state trooper's cruiser, his posture broken by an overwhelming sense of guilt. He isn't just running, he's apologizing to the world for the horror he's about to unleash. The silence hits hard as we focus on the trooper's badge lying discarded in the cracked asphalt. It's a chilling sign that the authority and order represented by the badge have been utterly obliterated by this cosmic threat. We pull back from the cosmic tension for a moment to set the scene at Me and Moe's, a classic Evergreen diner. The atmosphere is mundane, almost aggressively normal, as a patron brushes off a minor mistake with a bit of folksy wisdom. Inside, the service is friendly and efficient. The waitress navigates the orders, confirming the pie selection with a smile while the diner hums with the low-stakes chatter of everyday life. At the counter, the conversation shifts to the game on TV. It's a classic sports debate, Lakers versus Phoenix, with a side of casual betting, grounding these characters in a reality that feels completely disconnected from the horror unfolding elsewhere. The diner's doorbell rings, signaling an arrival. It's a quiet, rhythmic sound that carries a weight of anticipation, punctuated by a weary internal reflection on the nature of luck. Just as the diner atmosphere seems to settle, the bell rings. A disheveled, shadowed figure enters, instantly drawing the attention of everyone in the room. The patrons watch him with a mix of confusion and mild concern. The vibe has shifted from a casual meal to something far more uneasy. The waitress approaches the stranger, trying to maintain a professional, helpful demeanor despite his alarming state. The stranger is barely holding it together, requesting only water. The waitress, clearly unsettled, tries to probe for information about how he ended up in such a state. He doesn't have an explanation for his journey, only a cryptic warning. Before he can elaborate, he begins to lose his composure entirely, causing the waitress to call out in alarm. The casual atmosphere of the diner is shattered instantly. As the Lakers game cuts out, the television shifts to an emergency broadcast, forcing everyone to stop what they're doing. News anchors provide a chilling update. They are airing live, unedited helicopter footage from Evergreen, Nevada. The town is suddenly the center of a national crisis. Panic sets in among the patrons. The sheer, raw nature of the footage, broadcast without filters, leaves the room in a state of stunned, horrified silence as they realize the gravity of the situation unfolding on screen. The broadcast repeats its warning, emphasizing that the footage is raw and unedited, while the mysterious, disheveled stranger sits in the foreground, consumed by a shadow that seems to mirror the darkness of the event. The news coverage shifts to an aerial view of Evergreen, and the scale of the devastation is impossible to ignore. A massive, glowing green construct, reminiscent of a power battery, has literally cratered the town, crushing everything beneath it. It's a chilling, surreal sight that makes it clear this isn't just a disaster, it's an invasion of reality itself. The reporter's voice is barely a whisper over the chaos, simply confirming that what we are seeing is happening in real time. On the news, the reporter is clearly rattled, struggling to process the absolute devastation in Evergreen while trying to identify the mysterious object behind the carnage. Suddenly, the feed is cut, and the reporter is forced to issue a vague, scripted shutdown of the broadcast, a clear sign that higher-ups are scrambling to contain the truth. An ominous emergency action notification flashes on screens across the country, signaling a national crisis. Inside the diner, the patrons are shell-shocked, watching the alert and wondering if they've just witnessed a nuclear strike. As the gravity of the situation sinks in, the question remains, if it wasn't a bomb, what could possibly cause that level of destruction? Back in the diner, the tension is palpable as someone asks the question everyone is afraid to answer. What actually happened in Evergreen? The page closes on a chilling, silent visual of a dark, ring-like void, the silent, terrifying signature of the power now loose in the world. 5 days before the chaos in Evergreen, we find Hal Jordan and John Stewart sharing a casual lunch. Hal is distracted, keeping a close watch on an online auction for a vintage Malibu Mary dream house, fully embracing the low-stakes life of a collectibles dealer. John playfully mocks Hal's career choice, but Hal insists on respect for his profession, firing back a jab at John's work as an architect in a town that sees almost no new development. John admits he only moved back to Evergreen under duress, though things are looking up with a new hospital contract in Carson City. He starts to concede that local business alone wouldn't keep them afloat, but he's interrupted by a sudden, jarring noise. John's attention snaps away from their conversation as the roar of engines pierces the air, signaling that something, or someone, is moving through their quiet town at breakneck speed. Outside the diner, a group of bikers tears through the street, their engines roaring past a billboard that hauntingly asks if you've been saved. Hal and John watch the chaos from their table. Hal is clearly agitated, pointing out the reckless speed of the bikers and suggesting they alert Guy, though he's quick to shut down the idea of reaching out himself. John picks up on the tension, asking if the two of them had a falling out. Hal opens up about his past with the Evergreen Police Department and how an argument with Guy over his career path led to some harsh words. Hal's expression darkens as he reflects on his choice to leave, standing by his decision even if it caused a rift between him and his old colleague. Hal and his friend are deep in a candid conversation about the past. Hal presses his friend on why they moved back to Evergreen, suggesting that Coast City couldn't have been that unbearable. Hal's friend shuts the line of questioning down hard, making it clear that their time in Coast City is firmly in the rearview mirror, and they have no intention of revisiting it. Hal doesn't let it go, though, and calls out his friend on still wearing a wedding ring despite the relationship being over. It's a moment of surprising vulnerability, as his friend explains that symbols often outlive the reality they represent, before pivoting to a classic piece of John Stewart trivia about the ring finger. The quiet conversation in the diner is shattered instantly. A motorcycle roars past, the sound cutting through the air like a knife. Before anyone can react, a massive, reality-bending surge of green energy slams into the environment. It's not just an explosion, it's a tearing of space itself. The force is absolute, turning the surroundings into a chaotic zone of debris and violent, visceral color. The impact is catastrophic. The bike is decimated, and the sheer destructive power of this weapon is laid bare in a deafening, reality-shaking blast. Hal and John are caught completely off guard, their faces frozen in pure, unadulterated shock as they realize their peaceful day has just turned into a nightmare. Hal Jordan bolts from the diner, his instincts kicking in as he rushes toward the scene of the crash. Stewart, ever the voice of reason, tries to keep pace and maintain some sense of order, calling out for help, but Hal is already committed to the chaos. Hal reaches the source of the disturbance and stops dead in his tracks. He reaches out, his hand making contact with an invisible, glowing green barrier that defies all logic. The sheer confusion on his face says it all. This isn't just an accident, it's something entirely new. Hal and his companions survey the eerie scene, noticing a strange curvature in the air that suggests they are trapped in something far more unnatural than a standard road accident. They spot a group of bikers approaching through the haze, hoping these newcomers might be the help they desperately need to signal for assistance. But the bikers are cold, they don't even acknowledge the carnage on the road. They simply turn their bikes around and ride away, completely unfazed by the wreckage. Hal and his companion are left in stunned silence, watching the mysterious group retreat into the distance. Desperation takes over as Hal shouts into the void, fruitlessly demanding they return, but the bikers vanish, leaving them alone with the growing horror of their situation. The group is realizing that their immediate environment has been compromised. One of them notes the complete lack of cell reception and begins to suspect they are trapped inside some kind of physical barrier, a dome that curves up and around them. She points upward, drawing the attention of the others to the sky above. The tension is palpable as they try to process the scale of this containment. Their eyes lock onto a strange, dark object hovering high above them in the eerie green atmosphere, leaving them to wonder exactly what kind of threat they are dealing with. Everything stops. We shift from the immediate chaos of the diner to a singular, ethereal reveal. Looming over the horizon like a god of a dying world, we finally see the source of the catastrophe, Abin Sur. The sheer scale of him is terrifying, and the caption drives home the weight of that name, a name that echoes through this entire mystery. The stranger's confession continues, his expression twisted with a mix of regret and haunting realization as he admits his fatal error to the concerned diners. He describes his fateful encounter with the dying Abin Sur, revealing that the alien passed a burden onto him, a power he clearly wasn't prepared to handle. The weight of his words lands hard. He clarifies that what he was given wasn't a gift, but a weapon, setting the stage for the terrifying reality of what he's carrying. Earl is clearly spiraling, his mind trapped back on the highway where he first encountered that police officer. He's staring into the distance, reliving the trauma of being cornered, unable to escape the weight of what Abin Sur left him with. As the pressure in the room mounts, the people around him start to close in. They're demanding answers, but Earl is terrified of what happens if he actually reveals the source of his burden. The confrontation turns physical. Someone grabs for him, desperate to see what he's hiding, completely unaware that they're reaching for a cosmic, reality-warping weapon that has no business being in a diner in Evergreen. Horror truly begins as the stranger Earl loses his grip on the cosmic weapon. We witness a violent, reality-shattering manifestation as a dark, swirling silhouette, a void of pure energy, erupts, physically pulling a person into its corrupting influence while Earl struggles to contain the impossible force. In the aftermath, a lone gold locket clatters to the floor, all that remains of the person just erased. The diner patrons, witnessing this nightmare firsthand, are paralyzed with pure terror. One of them, recognizing the man at the center of the chaos, can only stammer out his name in disbelief as the reality of the situation sets in. The tension in the diner is reaching a breaking point. The stranger is physically wrestling with his own arm, which has been consumed by a dark, ink-like substance. He is terrified, warning everyone to stay back as he struggles to contain a force he identifies as the Hand. He's losing the battle, and the environment is reacting to his internal turmoil. A red, reality-warping energy field flares up around him, signaling that the weapon is no longer dormant. It is actively feeding on the mounting tension in the room. The situation turns lethal in a heartbeat. As the stranger realizes the force is reacting to the immediate threat of violence, he is caught off guard, and a shot rings out, striking him before he can finish his final warning. Everything goes sideways, literally. The mundane reality of Evergreen is shredded as the energy Earl was struggling to contain finally ruptures, slamming a vehicle straight into the side of me and Moe's diner. The visual distortion here is intense, with the reality-warping effects of the weapon bleeding into the environment itself, turning a simple crash into a surreal, catastrophic moment of impact. The diner, which served as our grounded anchor point, is now the epicenter of the destruction, proving that nowhere is safe from this volatile, alien force. The stranger's eyes widen in sheer, unadulterated terror as he realizes he cannot stop the encroaching power. He can only whisper a single word of denial. He stands amidst the wreckage, his body racked with pain as the dark, volatile energy begins to tear him apart from the inside out. He is desperately trying to fight off the corruption, but the weapon is winning. In a horrific turn, the stranger actually welcomes the lethal damage. hoping that if the power kills him, it might finally destroy the parasitic weapon that has been forced upon him. Whatever this power is, it's invasive. We see the terrifying moment it embeds itself, marked by a sickening mechanical sound as it locks into place. The stranger Earl is clearly at his breaking point. He's staring into the abyss, and the abyss is staring right back. It's a visceral body horror transition. The energy doesn't just sit on the skin, it's consuming him, spreading like a sentient stain. He's terrified, looking for any sense of mercy, but he knows the answer. He's trapped in a nightmare of his own making, begging for a release that isn't coming. Suddenly, the tension shifts. The diner door chimes, signaling an unexpected arrival in the middle of this escalating disaster. It's a shock someone actually knows Hal Jordan. In a town falling apart at the seams, being recognized is the last thing Hal needs. We wrap up this preview with a spotlight on the creative vision behind Absolute Green Lantern. Here, we see the artistic process for Jo Mullein, showcasing her character design and the expressive range that artist Lindsay brings to the page. This panel highlights Jo's determined gaze, emphasizing the intensity she brings to this mystery-driven narrative. Moving to a more focused look, we see a close-up of Jo's face, capturing the grit and intellect that writer Ewing identified as crucial for his lead character. Here we see the darker side of this power, with a striking visual of Jo channeling that volatile, glowing green energy that defines this new, terrifying iteration of the mythos. This panel zooms out to show the scope of the threat, with characters looking toward the horizon where the weapon's catastrophic impact has left its mark on Evergreen. We get a glimpse of the chaos from above, with a helicopter hovering over the massive, reality-warping green construct that has effectively leveled the town. Finally, we see the full composition of the team's work, cementing the tone of this horror-infused sci-fi epic. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Absolute Universe. Be sure to subscribe for more breakdowns of the latest releases.